Economic control. Blacks have used music to earn a living in America for many years. Performing performing was the single most profitable occupation for blacks prior to the Civil War, as far back as 1850. Census data indicated that nearly 24% of all free blacks classified themselves as professional musicians. However, until Barry Gordy demonstrated how to control and commercialize black culture by forming Motown Records in the late 1950s, few blacks had found a way to form a lifeline between music and the wealth building opportunities provided. Gordy practically cornered the market on contracting black singing talent. His artists dominated the record industry for decades, repopulari- repopu- repopularized, repopularized black music and controlled this black art form. Motown provided vertical opportunities for black singers, promoters, writers, and musicians. It was an important symbol of blacks controlling and profiting from black culture and producing wealth and power. Unfortunately, in 1993, it was reported that this unique repository of black history and culture would be purchased by Polygram Music, a Dutch corporation. Though Motown passed from black hands to white hands, it still stands it still stands as the prime model for using black culture to build a sense of racial togetherness, pride, and economic success. Building black wealth on black art forms. The record, the record, record industry sells $7.5 billion annually in compact discs, tapes, record albums, and other products and services centered around music, according to Black Enterprise magazine. That figure nearly matches the total gross annual revenue for all black businesses combined for the same time period. Black performers could leverage their status within the industry to create new business opportunities for black investors and inspiring entrepreneurs. They could use their wealth and popularity as leverage to foster vertical business opportunities from talent agencies and music distributorships to nightclubs and record stores. The more economic the more economic involvement in the industry, the more personal power and wealth black entertainers could hold for themselves and their people. Developing sports into an area of economic strength. Sports historically have been used to promote forms of recreation and relatively harmless ways to let off steam, gain attention, and foster specific attitudes and behavior patterns among blacks. From slavery to present day, these purposes have remained unchanged. Unchanged. Supports Sports were not perceived as avenues for the black community to acquire wealth and income. In terms of an example of vertical business opportunities for black for the black race, sports are second only to black music. only if blacks perceive the industry with new eyes and seize the opportunity to gain more control over it. Unlike black music, dance, and language art forms, American sports are culturally unique and were not produced by blacks. Blacks were introduced to sports in America by to benefit whites. Blacks did not invent boxing, basketball, baseball, or football, but they have dominated these particular sports. Blacks are attracted to sports for a great variety of reasons. First, sports, unlike music, represent opportunities for black athletes to regain the humanity that slavery and Jim Crow stripped away. For many black Americans, sports fill an emotional need and present an opportunity to measure oneself against opponents, especially non black ones. For a long time, sports were the only area in which a black person was allowed to be a winner. During slavery, some competitive activities were regularly planned and others were spontaneous. Boxing, wrestling, horse racing, foot racing, woodcutting, and a variety of dance contests were very popular. Black slaves often created their own contests in betting on who could pick the most cotton or do the most work in a certain period of time. Sports produced benefits to slave masters. Let's do this. Sports produced benefits to slave masters. Saturday night sports. Saturday night sports. Saturday night sports contests between black slaves and black slaves from different plantations were held routinely for fun and profit. They provided the slave the opportunity to demonstrate his physical prowess and permitted the white slaveholders to enjoy themselves and make more money. At the more popular events, whites placed very large wagers on slaves of their choice, and earned money from the contest. The activities were designed to promote blacks as uniquely endowed with physical attributes best managed by white overseers. Permitting blacks to engage in sports activities was also a major part of the conditioning process. For not only did the black sports contests entertain and make money for whites, but free play activities effectively drained off the slaves' excess physical energies, thereby reducing the level of potential threat to the slave owners and overseers. Similarly, the sports events kept blacks preoccupied until they resumed work in the fields and factories. Slaveholders sometimes purposely over involved slaves in sports activities so that they were happy to give up their temporary freedom and were anxious to return to routine chores. Cruel and abusive whites created sports that used blacks like footballs and ducks. Huh? Cruel and abusive whites created sports that used blacks like footballs and or ducks to entertain themselves and make money. Whites developed a game called coon hunting. The game was also used to reinforce fear and discipline with blacks. Within blacks, blacks could avoid being used. Blacks could avoid being used in the games by making sure that they always obeyed whites. The Coon game, blacks ordinary, extraordinarily, extra, in the Coon game, blacks' extraordinary running abilities and endurance were pitted against white hunters' skills. Whites joined the game with rifles and hunting dogs. A slave with whom a white owner was dissatisfied was covered with a scent and set free to run in the woods at night. The slaveholders released their hound dogs to track and tree the slaves, or the slave. Mhm. Bets would be placed as to whose dogs would catch the slave first. Once caught and treed, the slave was usually shot from the tree like a raccoon. During the first few decades of the 20th century, in Rosewood, Florida, a wild game of coon hunting lasted for as long as 8 days, with more than 100 blacks being killed. Nearly a century later, the caucus of black legislators in Florida successfully pushed through, for the first time ever, a monetary reparations bill for the survivors of the hunt. For blacks, there was a direct path from the cotton fields to the athletic fields. While a black person was despised for his color, most were respected for their endurance, strength, and athletic abilities. Blacks began blacks began to gain recognition for certain sports. One of the first was horse racing. As early as 1783, Count Francisco d'Alverme, in a letter to his father, remarked that in North Carolina, young teenage blacks were jockeys and rode horses bareback. Blacks groomed and cared for most of the plantation stables and developed a great deal of expertise raising and training the racing horses. By the latter part of the 19th century, black jockeys dominated the horse racing industry. Jockeys such as Isaac Murphy had achieved preeminence in national races. He won the Kentucky Derby in 1884, 1890, and 1891. Murphy also won the American Derby in 1884, 1885, 1886, and 1888. A lesser known black jockey, Jimmy Lee, won all six of the races at Louisville in 1907. Within a couple of years, black jockeys' salaries had reached as high as $10,000 to $20,000 annually. Noting that it was not appropriate for blacks to earn such noting that it was not appropriate for blacks to earn such levels of wealth, the racing industry held accountable held accountable by the larger white community, eventually removed all blacks and replaced them with white and Hispanic jockeys. the only public reminder that blacks developed and once dominated the horse racing industry are the statues of black long jockeys, black lawn jockeys that years ago decorated lawns and guarded driveways across America. As blacks entered other sports, they quickly came to dominate them as well. The first black boxer, Tom Molyneux, Molyneux, Tom Molyneux, was a slave who was freed because of his outstanding boxing skills. One of the most famous black boxers was Jack Johnson, whose boldness so inflamed white society that they sought a great white hope to remove him from the boxing ring. Joe Louis Joe Louis dominated boxing for nearly 2 decades. He too was challenged in the 1930s by a great white hope, Max Schmeling, a German boxer. But Lewis, like nearly all black boxers and black athletes, finished his career impoverished. Few black athletes were successful in gaining access to the management and promotional aspects of organized sports. The black man's role in athletics was symbolized by the Harlem Globetrotters. Integration led to the demise of the all-black basketball league in the 1940s. Major League white basketball teams eventually hired a few of the black players on a quota basis. To salvage the black talent that was being wasted, Abe Saperstein signed the best players to be Harlem Globetrotters and showcase their antics and skills around the world. Just as with black music, people in different nations were excited by the physical dexterity of the black skinned players. During the past 50 years, individual black players moved beyond simply being paid as during the past 50 years, individual players moved beyond simply being paid as clowning athletes. However, the larger share of the profits still go to whites involved in ownership and team management. Expanding black business and wealth opportunities. Sports offer an opportunity for blacks to practice successful group economics and a chance to convert professional dominance and black consumer spending into wealth power. Blacks are prolific consumers of sports equipment and sports clothing, and they spend a sizable amount of money watching sports. Blacks make up approximately 80% of the professional boxers, 75% of the professional basketball players, 50% of the professional football players, and 40% of the baseball players. Very few blacks own any entities connected to the sports industries. More of the vertical wealth, employment, and entrepreneurial opportunities form sports-related businesses More of the vertical wealth, employment, and entrepreneurial opportunities from sports related businesses could accrue to blacks if they challenge the many foreign businesses that manufacture and produce sports equipment and clothing. Blacks are heavy users of these consumer items. It is ironic that there are few Koreans, Taiwanese, Chinese, and Japanese in professional American sports, and even fewer Asian spectators. Yet these groups are the major manufacturers of the athletic equipment and clothing that is sold in the United States. In effect, black athletes and black spectators are subsidizing business development in other nations. With the support of black spectators, black athletes could negotiate more than higher salaries. They could leverage the popularity and fan support to create structural business opportunities for blacks at all levels of the industry. As a group, black athletes could negotiate for a percentage of the opportunities created by their team's purchases of sports equipment, marketing, and promotions, stadium concessions, insurance coverage, players' pension programs, banking deposits, accounting, legal services, and stock sales, all of which would provide wealth to blacks seeking business opportunities in sports. The practice of group economics would give individual black would give the the practice of group economics would give individual athletes leverage and open economic opportunities that would strengthen blacks as a group. Without the collective pressure of black athletes and spectators, the sports industry will have no incentive to alter its present practice of excluding black business persons. Conclusion: vertical business opportunities, like trees, grow best when they have strong, deep roots from which to draw nourishment and support. Music and sports represent such business opportunities for blacks, for in these industries, black people's roots are indeed strong and deep. In addition, the raw resources are readily available. Missing are the capital, entrepreneurs, and the black community's commitment to pursue economic empowerment by using its valuable resources for its own advantage and self sufficiency.